Fair use doctrine of United States copyright law states, the fair use of a copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction and copies of phono records or by any other means specified by that section, for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, including multiple copies for classroom use, scholarship, or research, is not an infringement of copyright. In other words, I'm within my rights. Sawmill Turtle. What's up, turtle heads? Sorry I've been on hiatus for a while. I've had some issues of my own to work out, and I'm back now. Minus that stupid butterscotch cartoon avatar, and I'm ready to take on a theory I've been pondering for a while now. Is Willy Wonka really Willy Wonka? Before we get started, though, I'm going to take a moment to point out that this theory only applies to the 1971 movie adaptation. This has nothing to do with the books or the later film starring Johnny Depp. Okay, so I'm a major Potterhead, right? And I was reading this fan theory that suggested that Willy Wonka was actually George Weasley from Harry Potter. And that's why he seems so magical and why his office is filled with objects that are missing one half. Willy Wonka is George Weasley and actually attended Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and the reason that everything is cut in half is because he's missing half of himself. He has since gone into the Muggle world, he's making Muggle sweets, and he's doing everything in honor of his dead brother. Problem with that, of course, is that Fred Weasley died in May of 1998, and this story takes place decades before that happened. So much for that. Unless you consider the possibility that he might have used a time turner to travel back in time.
Wrong, sir. Wrong.
Just kidding. We're not doing that. In any case, I got to thinking about those half objects in Wonka's office. Why did he decorate his office this way? I began pondering over all the events in the movie, and I came to this startling realization. And after you see it for what it is, all the pieces fit, and it makes perfect sense. The theory: Wonka is not actually Willy Wonka, but an imposter. Well, sort of. The person you see throughout the entire film in that awful, awful purple suit is not Willy Wonka at all. What he is a spokesperson, a company face, a chocolate empire Ronald McDonald. That sounds crazy, right? Well, consider this. Point A. Wonka is not above using deception. The first time you saw this movie, you thought the guy who said that he was Arthur Slugworth of Slugworth Chocolates was actually Arthur Slugworth of Slugworth Chocolates. You can go ahead and admit it, you never suspected, even up to the end, that he might be a phony. Why would you ever suspect that this guy who claims to be Wonka's greatest rival would actually be some schmuck named Wilkinson who works for Wonka? I mean, he's got this cool-ass scar on his face, and everyone knows that scars make you evil, right? I mean, the good guys don't get cool scars like that. It's only the evil guys who get those gnarly scars. So this guy with the money, who likes whispering things in the ears of children and getting close enough to kiss them. Don't do it, Wilkinson. The fat kid probably has breath that tastes like old cheese balls and bratwurst. It's probably pretty evil. That's the idea, though. You'd never think twice about it. Wonka fooled you. He put a stand-in where a stand-in was necessary and pulled off an elaborate and multi-layered game of deception. Game of Thrones couldn't have done it better. What do you think's going to happen to the naughty children like Veruca Salt and Mike TV when they take their gobstoppers to Wilkinson, expecting him to lay a fat stack of money in their greedy little hands? Here's your gobstopper, Mr. Slugworth. And where's my money? I'll have my secretary drop it in the mail first thing Monday morning. You should get it within 10 to 12 business days. All right, cool. All I have to do is sit back and wait for the money to roll in. I can trust that guy, right? I mean, I did get dumped down a garbage chute into a furnace to get in that stupid jawbreaker thing. I'm sure he's on the up and up. And also consider how Wonka, in one final test of integrity, pretended to banish Charlie and told him that his consumption of the fizzy lifting drink had caused him to forfeit his prize. He went so far as to yell at Grandpa Joe, create an ugly scene, turn his back on them, and in essence, tell them to get the fuck out.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Sounds like a get the fuck out to me. All of that to get Charlie to give him back the gobstopper of his own accord. Then it was all smiles and hugs and, yay, you won. You serious right now? Like, you were just yelling at me and calling me a thief, and now I'm the golden child again? Have you been checked for bipolar disorder, sir? Like, gee, thanks for all the bullshit. I was almost chopped into hot dog meat by your industrial fan, and your only concern was that you had to wash my handprints off the ceiling, and now you want to give me a hug and tell me how proud you are? Oh, hell no. So, we've proven that Wonka, whoever he is perfectly willing to use sleight of hand and deception and downright douchebaggery to protect himself and his business, and to weigh the moral integrity of those with which he comes in contact. But all that proves is that he's tricky, right? Not that he's not who he claims to be. Well, point B. Wonka is a middle-aged man who claims to be old. At the end of the film, Wonka tells Charlie that he's getting older. He says that he can't go on forever, and he doesn't really want to try, so he needs an heir, someone he can trust with his secrets, someone who can take care of his candy slaves. Oh, and don't argue the slave point with me. They're totally slaves. Do you think that each one of those Oompa Loompas immigrated from Loompa Land legally? Do you think they have work visas and green cards? If they did, more people would know about them because, well, let's face it, that's a lot of immigrant labor. No, he smuggled them in, and now he has complete control over them. In fact, he says as much in the film.
And so, in the greatest of secrecy, I transported the entire population of Oompa Loompas to my factory here.
Now, he doesn't even have to pay them the legal minimum wage, if he pays them at all. I mean, if he really decides to tear into them, what are they gonna do? The fuck is this? The fuck? You, Big Orange. My name isn't Big Orange, it's Teletalk. I think I've told you this before. I don't give a shit what your name is, Tropicana. Can you please explain to me why we've gone through over 40 prototypes of the dinner gum now, and I've still got workers turning into blueberries? This is costing me money. It's Teletalk, and I don't know. We've tried absolutely... Oh, you don't know? No comprende? No explica inglés? I understand every word you're saying, but I... Oompa Loompa Doopity Doo. I've got another puzzle for you. What happens when Big Daddy Chocolate gets angry? Really? I really don't think this is what happens when Big Daddy Chocolate gets angry. No dinero. No dinero. No dinero for you today. We're not Mexicans. We're Oompa Loompas. You want me to call immigration? You speak of that, Cheeto? I believe I just told you my name is Teletalk. You know what? Never mind. Fix it, or no dinero. But anyway, he tells Charlie he needs someone to make the chocolate and care for his orange Mexicans because he's old. Problem is, he's not that old. I'd put him in his late 40s, early 50s at best. I mean, he's not on the back nine or anything. He's just teeing off, baby. That's a Adam Sandler joke for those of you who get it. The actor who played Wonka, the late and great Gene Wilder, lived another 40 years or so after he made this movie. So we can assume that Wonka would have a similar amount of time. He's not exactly working with one foot in the grave now, is he? So tell me, why is this so important to him? Why is time of the essence? Why did he concoct this elaborate ruse to lure one local boy to his factory and ask him to live there? Funny joke, Michael Jackson had to build a Ferris wheel in his backyard to lure kids to his house. Wonka just offered him candy.
You terrible man.
He concocted this big scheme. Not because he was lying to Charlie, though I guess he kind of was, but he wasn't. The thing about it was, he was speaking on behalf of the real Wonka, a man who is much older, a man who doesn't have nearly as much time left, a man with a personal interest in bettering Charlie's life. And there's only one man who fits that description. This man. I'm here to suggest, based upon evidence, that Grandpa Joe is the real Willy Wonka, and that everything Gene Wilder's character says to Charlie, he says on behalf of Grandpa Joe.
Point C. Grandpa Joe's miraculous recovery.
Let's face it, when Charlie found his golden ticket, old Grandpa Pissy Cheeks got up out that bed real quick. He did some leans and whatnot to make it look good, but he always had the power to climb out of that bed of his own accord. There was never anything wrong with him. So why did he pretend like he was feeble? Why make his family care for him? Why make his beloved grandson eat cabbage water for dinner? I mean, seriously, cabbage water? They're so poor they can't even afford an actual cabbage? And then there's this.
When a loaf of bread looks like a banquet, I've no right buying tobacco.
That's real shit. It's stated several times in the movie that Old Man Bedpan and his 3 skeleton buddies haven't been out of bed in over 20 years. 20 years. 2 decades. Longer than Charlie has been alive. And you know what? There was never a thing wrong with him. It was all a ruse. Every last bit of it. Notice how quick he went from stumbling all over the place to kicking his heels up and doing a perfectly choreographed dance number? I'm sorry, but if he was really feeble, he'd be like a godsend for the world of physical therapy. A lot of the people who have real ailments spend years trying to get back even a fraction of the control that Grandpa Look at Me achieves in the time of a 3-minute musical number. This would be a medical breakthrough on the same level as the discovery of penicillin if he'd actually been bedridden. But he wasn't. Oh no. Nope. This was all a clever ruse. And why? Because who would suspect a crippled old man in a soiled nightgown of being the real Willy Wonka, the legendary chocolate maker? That dude done pissed himself. He ain't Wonka. You got to be out your mind. This dude smells like disease and despair and oncoming death. This guy is the one who just made like billions of dollars? Nah, not him. What better way to keep attention away from yourself and keep attention on your mascot? It all goes back to the same sleight of hand that Wonka actually uses with the whole Mr. Wilkinson thing. Now, I hear you objecting already. If he's really Wonka, that makes him like the worst human being ever after Hitler, doesn't it? I mean, really, he's eating cabbage water. His grandson has to watch other children be happy through shop windows because they're so poor. Charlie's mother has to work with vats of hazardous chemicals and clean laundry with a giant wooden fork to make ends meet. And they all live in such miserable conditions that it's a wonder Charlie isn't sickly like Tiny Tim in A Christmas Carol. Pretty scary to put on that kind of an act for 20 years, don't you think? Well, not really. Not if you think about the kinds of things that Wonka was saying as Grandpa Joe's mouthpiece. Wonka is not a stupid person. Not by a long shot. He knew that one day he would pass on his factory to one of his descendants, but he couldn't let whoever it was know about his or her inheritance. In fact, he had to raise them in such a way that they became humble, caring individuals. He didn't want to raise his heir to be like Veruca Salt.
You're a rotten mean, Father. You never give me anything I want.
Or like the Gloops. In his own words, he was looking for an honest, loving child, one that he could teach his most precious candy-making secrets.
And take care of the Oompa Loompas for me.
And take care of the Oompa Loompas for him. He had to make sure that this child did not grow up arrogant, spoiled, gluttonous, or entitled. He always intended to reveal to his family exactly who he was at a later time. He planned to reveal to them his reasons for withholding this information and why it was all so important. But, you may ask, why did he wait 20 years? And why didn't he pass the factory to his daughter, Charlie's mom, if he was just waiting on an heir? Ah, point D, Charlie's mysterious dead father. What if I suggested to you that Charlie's mom is not Grandpa Joe's daughter, that Grandpa Joe's child was actually Charlie's father?
Dad, in all the years you've been saying you're going to get out of that bed.
Yeah, okay. She calls him Dad. So what? I know a lot of people who call their in-laws Mom and Dad. A lot. The 20-year wait makes perfect sense if you consider the possibility that Grandpa Joe was planning to pass the factory to his own son. But his son ended up getting killed early in life, roughly 11 or 12 years before the start of the film. Now he has to wait for Charlie, his only grandson and now his rightful heir, to come of age. What might have only been about 8 to 10 years of waiting ended up being prolonged because of the human condition. Accidents happen, shit happens, and the heir to the Wonka Empire ended up taking an old dirt nap. This actually makes a lot of sense if you consider when Grandpa Joe and the others ended up as feeble and bedridden. It was 20 years before, as a matter of fact. So let's do a bit of fan fiction hypothesizing here. About 30 years before the start of the film, let's say 1941, Grandpa Joe begins making homemade candies. This is smack dab in the middle of World War II, which lasted from 1939 to 1945. So he might have been employed in a factory that manufactured artillery. To take his mind off the war and off the fact that he's helping to create items that are going to be used by human beings to kill other human beings, he takes up confections in his spare time. He then decides that his treats are good enough to sell, and he reaches out to a friend of his with a business proposition. Joe will be the silent partner, the man behind the curtain, so to speak. His friend will take on the persona of Willy Wonka and represent their brand in front of the public. Joe will concoct all the recipes, make executive decisions, come up with the promotions, all that stuff. His friend would never have to do a thing but be a smiling face and answer some correspondence. And Joe has several reasons for doing things this way. 1. He values his privacy. This clearly isn't a man who is interested in being in the public spotlight, but he knows that a little bit of spotlight is necessary, so he needs someone to stand in it for him. 2. As I've said before, he is by no means a stupid man. He knew that his candy was better than most of the fare taking up space on the store shelves. Someone was going to try and steal it at some point. What better way to keep an eye on things without arousing suspicion than by posing as one of his own workers? It would also give him an opportunity to secretly keep an eye on production and make sure that none of his employees were taking unwanted shortcuts. Wonka is clearly a man who wants things done a specific way. His way.
Not a grown-up. A grown-up would want to do everything his own way, not mine.
3. By posing as a Wonka employee, he could keep his family from getting suspicious. Joe, come here. We really need to talk, okay? Like, where is this money of yours coming from? Like, be honest with me. Are you Willy Wonka? Like, you can tell me. It's okay. I just want to know. I just want you to be honest with me. Are you Willy Wonka? Because, you got a big old stack of cheese. And we're not really sure where it's coming from, but you spend an awful lot of time in that candy factory. So just tell me the truth here, okay? Just straight up. What? No. Relax, guy. No, I'm not Wonka. No, I'm just a normal guy who happens to have $15 million in the bank and smells like chocolate all the time. Relax, guy. Take a rest. Oh, yeah. Okay. Stupid asshole. Now, these are just a few of the reasons he might choose to do this. Another might be that this movie could take place somewhere in Europe where the threat of Nazi invasion was very, very real. Perhaps if the Nazis came calling, he didn't want them looking at him or any member of his family. So we skip ahead a few years. The war is over, the Wonka name has gotten huge, Joe's own son comes of age, and Joe gets him a job in production. The family's doing okay. They're not living in the deplorable conditions that they are when the movie begins, that's for sure. Joe's paycheck at the factory has got them living comfortably enough. Not overly comfortable, but comfortable enough. He's not ready to tell them his secret because he wants them to stay humble and down to earth. He doesn't want his family to forget where they came from or to lose their loving hearts or their honesty. Because he's already making plans to select a successor one day, and he wants to make sure that that successor is worthy. There's a problem though. Other employees are getting suspicious of him. When Joe's around, people who take shortcuts one day end up losing their jobs or getting reprimanded the next. The spies are beginning to show up in greater numbers now, and they all seem to get caught due to circumstances involving Joe. What's up with that? Is this guy more than he appears to be? People begin asking questions, and Joe begins seeing people talk in hushed tones that stop whenever he walks into the room. Uh-oh. So, he knows his secret is close to being discovered, so he needs to drop out of sight and run things from a less visible point of view. But how to do it? See, with people beginning to question him, he can't just quit his job. That will only add fuel to the fire. Seriously. Hey, Tony. Come here. Remember that Joe guy? Is it just me, or that guy was Wonka, right? I mean, this is like an undercover boss kind of thing. and that dude was Wonka. Like, I'm not just being paranoid. Like, that was just way too much of a coincidence. Just tell me I'm not the only one who thinks this, please. Oh, no, totally. He was totally Wonka. I mean, the dude quit his job, like, right around the time we all started giving him the stank eye. Dude, it's not you. It's not you. That dude was Wonka, I promise you. You're not being paranoid. You're not wearing a tinfoil hat. That guy was totally the boss. That was Wonka. We got him. And to make matters worse, he can no longer give his son any kind of factory authority. That would just cement it for people. That meant moving his son into management and eventually promoting him to chief executive officer was out of the question. I mean, how would that look if his son just happened to get promoted to production supervisor or something? Or maybe he never planned to pass the factory to his son at all. This part I've never really decided on. I mean, his son was probably a pretty decent guy, but that doesn't mean that Joe would give him the keys to something he's worked so hard to create. Especially if he didn't show any type of creativity or talent in production. If he was just a lackluster entry-level employee who did his job and kept his head down, why would Joe make him the next Wonka? Now that I'm thinking about it, this actually makes the most sense. It would be around this time that Wonka's line to Charlie at the end of the movie would come into play.
That's why I decided a long time ago that I had to find a child. A very honest, loving child.
See, right about now, he realizes that his own flesh and blood son doesn't meet his high requirements for creativity and whimsy. His son is a laborer, but he's not a music maker and he's not a dreamer of dreams. So he and his friend Wonka stage an accident to help him drop out of sight. Anything that would really hurt and make you go ow would work. A large stack of Wonka cases falls on top of him. He falls off one of those catwalks you never see anyone use in the film. Something goes boom. In fact, it might have been this very accident that causes the scar on Mr. Wilkinson's face. Wilkinson was always Joe's middleman between himself and Wonka. He always had a presence there, perhaps masquerading as a supervisor. Wasn't part of the plan for anyone to actually get hurt. He was just supposed to witness Joe doing something unsafe, call him out for it, like, hey, you up there, quit doing that. And then the other employees notice, like, hey, look at that asshole up there, what in the hell is he doing? And then Mr. Wilkinson gets there, but he's too late to stop Joe from getting hurt. And Joe gets hurt and is out of work. Unfortunately, the fake accident caused a real injury. Not one serious enough to leave Wilkinson bedridden or, dead in the ground somewhere, but serious enough to put him in a hospital and leave that righteous scar on his face. The end result of all of this is exactly what they hoped for all along. The departure from the factory and his threats to sue Wonka take the suspicious eyes off of Joe. He might have been a snitch for all the other employees knew. It might have been a rat. It might have just all been a coincidence. They don't know. But Joe is definitely not someone of any real importance. It's whatever. He's gone. Soon they forget all about him. And now, he's really a silent partner. Wonka and Joe communicate with each other through Wilkinson and coded messages, right? Wilkinson does some scouting, trying to help him find someone pure of heart enough to meet his really high criteria. He also keeps him up to date with what's going on in the factory. Wilkinson can never find someone good enough for Joe, and meanwhile, the reports of spying and thievery are getting worse. Around this time, Joe's son and daughter-in-law announce that they are expecting. Joe, understandably this is his first grandchild, Joe is overjoyed. This joy, unfortunately, doesn't last long, as shortly thereafter, one of Slugworth's spies causes an accident that kills Charlie's father. I mean, it isn't really that far out of the realm of possibility. The factory in Charlie's time was hazardous and a death trap, even despite Wonka's warning.
Little surprises around every corner, but nothing dangerous.
Consider the room with the fizzy lifting drinks. Seriously, did they not have a single brainstorming session during the creation of that area? That about wraps up the staff meeting. We got the golden ticket promotion coming up soon. I just want everybody on their A game for that. Go Team Wonka. Dancing Oompa Loompas. You need to make sure that your choreography is absolutely perfect. Well, not exactly perfect. I want it on point, but I don't want it too on point. You need to know your lyrics, though, but I don't want it to look rehearsed. Like, these kids, they're going to come in here, they're going to do some stupid stuff, you're going to sing, you're going to dance your dance, and all this stuff, but we don't want them to know that we know ahead of time that they're going to do these stupid things. They can't know that we know, okay? So I want it on point, but not too on point. And that's pretty much going to wrap us up today. Does anybody else have anything to add? Yeah, you there in the back. Me? Yeah, you, I know your name. Quick Tick. Q-tip. Right. It's Quick Tick. It's an Oompa Loompa word. It means honored chieftain. Whatever. You dip strawberries in chocolate now, right? Yeah. Thanks for that, by the way. Okay, so what exactly is it that you have to add? The drinks that make people float toward the ceiling, what about them? Well, I just don't know if putting them directly below the spinning industrial fan of death was such a good idea. Well, where else would we put them? Literally, anywhere else. Like, or maybe put up like mesh guards so we don't have to clean child meat off the walls and the floor. An interesting idea, but prohibitively expensive. What I think we'll do instead, it'll be cheaper and it'll be easier. What we'll do is we'll just ask the kids not to drink them. Boss, we've got entire dance numbers that we've rehearsed specifically to taunt children who come in here and misbehave. Your concerns have been noted, Strawberry Quick. Meeting adjourned. Anyway, back to our story. The entire family is devastated by the death of Joe's son. And Joe's had enough. He tells Wilkinson to tell Wonka to close the factory. He loses the will to do what he loves. He stops looking for a successor. He's just done. And this period of inactivity and depression lasts 2 years. Any plans Joe had of staging a recovery and climbing out of bed go down the toilet. His depression is so bad that he doesn't want to get out of bed anymore. During the 3rd year, Wilkinson reaches out to Joe and tells him that he and the face of the company might have discovered a solution to the labor problem. I guess you don't need a recap of the Oompa Loompa lore and how a Wang Doodle would eat 10 of them for breakfast and think nothing of it. Seriously? I'd pay $10 to see that. Like, oh my god, would that be hilarious or what? Like, they're just singing while he's, like, mowing down on them. Like, he's having 10 for one meal. Man, that'd be terribly hilarious. Anyway, is it just me? Or do the majority of the Loompa Land monsters sound like slang terms for penis?
Wang doodles and hornswogglers and snozwangers and rotten vermicious knids.
Except for rotten vernicious knid, which doesn't sound like a slang term for penis. It sounds like a slang term for some old nasty hooker's vagina.
Hey boys, you looking for a good time?
Lady, I'm not putting my schnozwanker anywhere near your old rotten vernicious knid.
Oh, come on, baby. For only $5, I'll suck your everlasting gobstopper.
So, penis jokes aside, Joe feels renewed hope inside of him for the first time since his son died. He authorizes the relocation and the training of this new labor force, all of which takes about a year. By this time, Charlie would be between 2 and 3 years old. He already sees something inside of him that he likes, something that resonates with him. It's too soon to tell, but his grandson might be a music maker. He might be a dreamer of dreams. With the chocolate factory running full blast again and his young grandson a potential heir, he decides the best thing to do would be to stay in bed. It's been so long since the death of the boy's father and so long since he'd drawn a paycheck from being a factory worker that they've had to relocate to that ramshackle old house you see in the movie where they live in poverty. Why doesn't he just drop the ruse and climb out of bed? Why doesn't he make some kind of effort? Or why didn't he make an effort earlier? Because the cabbage water, the newspaper route, the humble surroundings, the starving to death, the rats, the bunk-ass TV, the staring through the windows, the creepy guy with the knife card even. I mean, they're all molding Charlie into exactly what Joe wants him to be. A kind and loving boy who never had any need to think of himself better than anyone else. He's full of curiosity and whimsy. He asks questions. He offers to share with his family even the little bit that he has, even if it's just a piece of candy. About a year before the start of the film, Joe knows Charlie is the one. He concocts the golden ticket promotion and sets it up so that the first 4 tickets are found by the most terrible children Wilkinson can get. Grandpa Joe is the one who sifts through potentials and selects these 4 that go into the factory and sets Wilkinson to make sure that those 4 children, the ones handpicked by him from across the globe, are the ones who find the tickets and make their way to the factory. And why is this? Because they're all gluttonous, stupid, lazy, spoiled, disrespectful, or some combination of all of the above. These children are selected specifically to show Charlie the kind of person that he shouldn't be, that Grandpa Joe doesn't want him to be. He's paraded through the factory, and he watches as these awful children reap the consequences of their bad decisions. And the rest you know. I just find it curious that Grandpa Joe repeatedly tells Charlie throughout the film that he's going to find a golden ticket. This isn't spoken like a loving relative indulging a child like, oh, of course you will. You'll find a golden ticket. Don't worry. It's going to be okay. He's saying it with absolute certainty, while Charlie's mother crushes his dreams with a heavy ham-fisted dose of reality, telling him that he won't find a ticket. Joe repeatedly tells him that it's going to happen. It was Joe, via Mr. Wilkinson, who put the money in the street for Charlie to find. It was Joe, via Mr. Wilkinson, who directed Bill, who ran the candy store, to give Charlie the bar with the ticket inside. They all knew exactly which one it was, but Bill was under strict instructions not to give it out until he was directed, and to only give it out to the person that he was told to give it to. And when it came right down to 1 ticket remaining, it was Joe who got everybody to stop looking and bought Charlie some time by inventing the story of the phony ticket in Paraguay. It was Joe, working in secret all along, who was the real Wonka. Anyway, that's my video. Sorry for the long hiatus. If you want more videos like this, you know where to find the like and subscribe buttons, and it helps. Until next time, take care, everybody.